Photographer Christina Mittermeier told me, Mohammed Muheisen doesn't photograph refugees. He photographs people. People like Leba, who he met as a 6-year-old Afghan refugee living in Pakistan. Or Zara, who he first encountered as a 5-year-old Syrian refugee living in Jordan. And of course, 10-year-old Abdullah, a badly burned boy who he met in a Syrian village. Born and raised in Jerusalem, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict formed the backdrop of his childhood. At a time and in a place where there wasn't much space to be a kid, he found his truest friend and his passion, his grandmother's Polaroid, magic in a box. He was obsessed with trees and nature. He wanted to share colors with the world. But the conflict shadowed his childhood and followed him into adulthood. With a BA in journalism and political science, he quickly made a name for himself, covering the Second Intifada. For a time, color was left behind. Mohammed joined the Associated Press and was soon covering conflict throughout the Middle East. He was there for the US invasion of Iraq, where he describes himself as young, inexperienced, and terrified. He was stabbed in Yemen. He lost his dearest friend, Anya Niedringhaus, to a bullet in Afghanistan. He had his heart broken in Syria, and he had an epiphany in Pakistan. While there, he realized that all of the news was always there, right in front of him. If he just turned around, there was a different scene, one full of life. Looking for smiles in the rubble became his theme. In the National Geographic documentary, Finding the Light, Mohammed says, "As I documented daily life, I learned how to be patient. I gained trust. I started to see colors again." Now, I would be remiss if I didn't share some of Mohammed's accolades. He is a 2-time Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, one for his image of young Abdullah. He is a National Geographic Society Explorer and a Wayfinder awardee. But back to photographing daily life. In 2015, while documenting the refugee crisis in Europe, Mohammed reached a point where he felt it was no longer enough to be the messenger. In his words, he needed to be the bridge. From this, his NGO, Everyday Refugees, was born. The goal is to document, help, educate, and empower refugees and internally displaced people. Or, as Christina put it, few photographers approach people with the gentleness and empathy that Mohammed brings. His camera is a vessel of trust. He listens, he returns. His images do not shout, they whisper, and yet they linger in your memory long after the headlines fade. Please welcome Mohammed to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Luca. Thanks, everybody. I'm Mohammed Muheisen. I'm a Jordanian national who was born and raised in Jerusalem. Being a kid in that part of the world in the late 80s, they didn't leave me much options to be a kid. The news was everything in my life. The news was the morning talk, the evening talk. It's all about what's happening in the region. I was very young when I fell in love with photography. It was the moment that I met my grandmother's Polaroid camera. I discovered my true love and passion, photography. This magical box that you press a button, a piece of paper comes out, documenting that exact moment that we get to keep with us the rest of our lives. I opened my eyes to my immediate surroundings, and I started to see colors. And I dreamt as a little kid, someday I will be able to capture these colors with my camera and share it with the world and color their world. The environment played a major role in my life. I graduated with a BA degree in journalism and political science to combine my passion photography with my educations in hope one day I will be an okay or a fine storyteller, as I always believed in the power of photography. In 2001, I joined the AP to cover the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Shortly after, I became an international photographer covering the region. In 2003, I was there during the US-led war in Iraq. I was young, inexperienced, and frankly, I was terrified. I was there to show the war, the destruction, the human misery. I thought being born surrounded by the conflict, I know it all. However, being in Iraq, I realized that I know nothing. And war is the darkest place to be in the middle of. Iraq was the place that changed me personally and professionally. I never remained the same person after. Almost every picture that I photographed there could have cost me my life. So years after and now, I keep asking myself, Mohammed, if time goes back, would you go to Iraq? And my answer is always yes, oh yes, because if something happened and was never documented, it's like it's never occurred. And I wanted to share with the world what's happening around them. Iraq was the place where I won my first Pulitzer Prize. So for the industry, I'm no longer just a photographer. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, so the expectation became so higher. But for me, I kept my head straight and I kept going. I kept traveling from one shattered country to another. I went to Yemen, where I was stabbed. I went to Afghanistan, where I lost my best friend, Anya. I went to Syria, where my heart was broken. And I went to several other countries that shared the conflict in common. However, in the middle of this journey, I realized if the news is right in front of me, and I just turn around, I will witness a total different scene. That scene was full of life, full of color, full of hope. As I remember, whenever there used to be funeral on my left, there was a baby just been born on my right. It's literally like a smile in the middle of the rubble. And this became the theme of my work, focusing mostly on children, as I believe that children are the real victim of conflict. Children all over the world share the same things in common. They all seek fun, they seek joy, they seek happiness, no matter where they are from or the circumstances surrounding them. And these photographs become their voice to the world. As with my photographs, I want to spread awareness. I want to change stereotypes. And I want to raise the voice of the people that I photograph, as these are never just pictures. These are voices, these are messages, and these are testimony that live forever. We immortalize them. As I don't just pass by and I start taking pictures, I spend time, I invest, I get to know the people that I photograph, and I aim to make an actual difference in their lives. Big or small, at least we start somewhere. It's not a 100-meter sprint. Trust me, it is a marathon. I never forget any of the children that I photograph, and I became known by their photographs. They are part of my life as I am part of theirs. I have seen many of these kids growing in the front of my eyes and my lens, and I wanted to introduce them, share their stories to the world. One of these children is Laiba Hazrat, a 6-year-old Afghan refugee who lives with her family in a mud home on the outskirts of Islamabad, Pakistan. I have seen Laiba for the first time in 2010. She was that little girl with the most beautiful face. After portraying Laiba, I received numerous of emails and messages. I got gifts and packages for her. So I couldn't wait to carry it and hand it to her. So my pictures connected two words. And the photographer became the bridge and the messenger, and this is why I'm a photographer. Another story of Zahra Mahmoud. I met Zahra for the first time in the summer of 2015. She was almost 5. Shortly after, she and her family fled the war in Syria, taking refuge in neighboring Jordan. Zahra was very sad, very quiet, and the scars of war can be seen all over her tiny face. After seeking permission from her father, Zahra's portrait was published everywhere, literally everywhere. She became the face of the lost childhood because of conflicts and chaos. A year after, this portrait was awarded UNICEF Picture of the Year, so I thought this is going to change her life. Unfortunately, nothing changed in her life. So I made it my mission, my commitment, my responsibility to keep documenting Zahra's stories and share her story with the world. From 2015 up to date, I have been visiting Zahra at least twice every year to keep telling her stories. I've seen her literally growing from a little girl to a teenager right now. But the good news, 10 years after, Zahra right now lives in a home, not in a camp. She goes to school. She plays the guitar just like any other teenager. So there is a hope out there, and we should never, ever stop believing. In 2014, I stood on a roadside on the outskirts of Islamabad, Pakistan, to document a daily life photograph. I spent 4 years and a half in Pakistan documenting the daily life and challenges Afghan refugees face in the country. It was a beautiful background, nice mud homes. There was a horse in the middle, and it was a gloomy weather, my favorite kind of weather to take a nice moment in time. I spent several hours, but what I didn't expect, there was this little boy who kept running in front of my camera, going right, going left, going right, going left, putting his muddy fingers on my lens, making it impossible for me to take any photograph. Hours after, a wooden cart parks by, a vendor selling balloon bubbles released in the air, and out of the blue, this kid jumps right in front of my lens, opening his arm, trying to catch this bubble. The perfect moment in time. I captured this moment, and I was very happy. Few months after, I printed this photograph on an A4 paper, and I went out and about to find this gentleman who's one day made my life like hell, and now he's the hero of my photograph. Refugees keep moving, so I managed to find him. His name is Zawar Khan. He's 10 years old. He lives in a mud home on the outskirts of the capital. I handed Zawar his photograph, and what I didn't realize that this is the first time this kid sees himself in a photograph. He was very proud, very emotional, and this is when I learned how a simple kindness could make a lot of difference in someone's life. And that made me think deeper and further. How can I make difference? In 2015, I stood with my cameras on the shores of the Greek island of Lesbos, where thousands and thousands of people fled war, poverty, and discrimination in search for a new, safe home. That year was the year that I wanted to do something about it, not only to be the messenger or the guy who brings simple kindness, but also to commit all of me to the cause of those who need help simply through my passion, photography. I have seen people who look just like me. I've heard languages that I'm familiar with. I've seen myself, my friends, my family, any one of us making this dangerous journey on a dinghy just to be in a safe home. And this is when I decided to create the Dutch nonprofit Everyday Refugees Foundation, where with photography, we document, educate, help, and empower refugees, local communities, and internally displaced people in different parts of the world. Being a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner and a world-renowned photographer made it easier for me to approach decision maker or people who can make an actual difference as the reach of my photographs became wider and the voice of the people became louder. In 2017, I traveled to Serbia to document the story for National Geographic magazine about the unaccompanied refugee minors stranded in the country. It was a very sad story to tell, where a number of these children took refuge in abandoned warehouses behind Belgrade Central Station. It was freezing, minus 20 degrees. These kids showered in cold water. They slept on the ground. They wrapped themselves in blanket, surrounding themselves with fire, inhaling the toxic smoke. A very tough, sad, and shocking situation and story to document that got me asked so many questions as a human being and as a visual storyteller, such as, why would an 8-year-old kid walk all the way from Afghanistan to Europe? Or why would a 12-year-old kid take shelter in a jungle between the Serbian-Croatian border? Why? As nobody leaves their home unless they are forced to leave their home. And this is what I tried to show in my images. I spent most of that year in Serbia, and shortly after the story was published, I returned back with a team from Everyday Refugees Foundation to hand the proper footwear, warm clothes, and check on the children that I met earlier of that year. For me, the story begins when every media leaves. This is when I come back to keep the story going, because it's a story of the people, and we should never, ever forget that. In early March 2022, I traveled to the Ukrainian-Romanian border to document another sad story, to document some of the stories of the women, children, and the elderly who fled the war in Ukraine, taking refuge in neighboring countries. One morning, it was freezing, it was snowing. While standing at the border, I saw a young mother carrying her daughter, making her way across the border to a nearby tent to sit down and rest. And this is when I approached Hannah and I asked her permission if I can portray her and her daughter, Kira. Hannah was so kind and nice. She told me, please take my portrait. I want the world to know what happened to us. While I'm taking the portrait of Hannah, I got emotional, and this is when Hannah put her daughter Kira down and came to me and hugged me and started comforting me. So simply, these are the people that are photographed. They're kind and humble. Behind the word refugees, there are mother, there are father, there are teacher. Could be any one of us. Currently streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu, my life and achievement in the National Geographic documentary series, Photographer, with my episode, Finding the Light. If you have the time, you would learn more of the stories behind my pictures. I would like to share with you this quick trailer of the episode.